Good morning, guys. How are we all doing? So this is Dan from Trading with Dan, and this is our Bitcoin morning update. So if you guys wouldn't mind smashing that like button, and we shall go straight over to those Bitcoin charts. So yeah, Bitcoin on the 4 hour. You can see we pretty much very nicely tested basically the underside of our resistance zone that we've got drawn in here. Yeah, tested that basically was our target, as we were talking about, basically to just tap the top of the range. That was it, really. Broke back above, tapped the midpoint of the range, came back down towards to test the support, obviously slightly front ran, and then break our way back above the midpoint, and then tagged the top. So all very nice and textbook. And yes, subsequently we have now come back down, currently testing the midpoint. As you can see, this is a 4 hour candle and has well, most of it, most of it left to go. I just thought it was frozen for a minute then, but yeah, we got well, basically the vast majority of this 4 hour candle. So providing this current 4 hour candle closes back above this midpoint, so basically back above 55,000, which if I had to guess, I would probably say that it would. But yeah, as long as the 4 hour candle closes above 55,000, and then we then start to move beyond that candle to the upside, then yeah, I mean, we could be looking good for just, well, actually, the most likely scenario is just more consolidation in this range before, well, potentially breaking above basically our all-time high, and making progress into the 60Ks. But obviously that's not necessarily what would happen. We can basically get back above, test it again, and then come down and lose this level. It'd be difficult. It's difficult to really say what I think is most likely to happen here. But obviously this is an important level, and we'll have a good shot of breaking it, but obviously it's an important level. Won't necessarily be the easiest thing to do, especially seen as all we have really done thus far in the slightly larger time frame is we've come all the way from the bottom of the range to the top of the range. So then to say we're going to all the way from the bottom to the top and then straight through is not necessarily the most likely scenario. So yeah, I mean, obviously expect some pullback or consolidation. If we consolidate, then ideally in this range here. If we pull back further, I mean, a nice level is basically back down to, well, what you could almost call the middle of our larger range, which would be around the 52,000. So we could pull back to there, and then bounce off there, and then move back up, and then it's not like we're going to move back up and move straight through the top. It's like just move back up and trade sideways, build momentum, decide what we're going to do. I mean, decide if we are going to break up or if we are going to put in a top here and then actually lose this level and come back down. But yeah, as it stands, we are respecting the levels quite well, which is good to see. It is, as I have said the past couple of days, aesthetically pleasing to see the charts do what you basically want the expect the charts to do, because that's just what charts have done in the past. And yeah, it just looks good. So first and foremost, we've got to get this 4 hour candle closing above 55k, bounce off here, then we can pretty much obviously target this level again, and then if we're getting up there again, we've got a higher likelihood of breaking it than we did at this point. But that doesn't mean that will happen. We just got a higher likelihood. So yeah, interesting times. Obviously altcoins are not particularly liking the situation at the moment, because they know Bitcoin is at least threatening to break out, which will give us potentially a pretty vicious move in Bitcoin to the upside, and we know that alts can't keep up. So alts are already basically starting to price in the chance of that, and obviously selling off a bit. Ethereum, Bitcoin is getting wrecked, as we can see. Hit a 4 hour 9, but not managed to bounce the price yet. But again, we've only just got into this candle. I mean, we could get acceleration into this 9, maybe even down basically into this horizontal here again. But I mean, realistically, we do need to be regaining this horizontal and basically not getting this low and putting in a higher low, and then if we do that, and then we can make our way back up of this this major horizontal we've got drawn in, then yeah, we can potentially look at this as a higher low relative to these lows, and then we can potentially push on upwards again. But yeah, like I said, that's not necessarily what is going to happen, but we can hope, can't we? we can hope, but yeah, so far, yeah, so basically there is actually this next 4 hour candle which has only just started. We were only 30 minutes in. Obviously for this Ethereum Bitcoin pairing, for the Bitcoin pairing, it's quite an important one really. It is a 4 hour 9 here where we do need to bounce. We don't want to be coming back any lower basically. In Bitcoin, we do want to bounce back above this 55k level to maintain the midpoint of this top half of the wider range. So yeah, it maybe would have helped if I'd done the video in a few more hours time and we had more obviously clarity on how this candle was going to play out. But yeah, Bitcoin actual Bitcoin dominance. We'll have a look at that because obviously, I can see the number there. I don't have to suspect it's moving up. Yeah, as you can see, this is moving up, and has has regained our horizontal here. But yeah, like I said though, not particularly reading into this too much. But as you can see, it has pulled back. This is the main one that I am kind of looking at, as you guys know, which is the Ethereum Satoshi pairing, which doesn't currently want to load, which is fine because we'll go over to the Ethereum USD pairing and see how that is looking if that wants to load. It will. Here we go. So yeah, yeah, as you can see, again. This 4 hour candle needs to pretty much close back above this horizontal, otherwise, yeah, potentially looking at more downside here. I mean, yeah, this does kind of look like we want to come and test lower at present because we've not got the candle close. You can see we have taken out this low, this horizontal, and moving down. But that being said, we have got basically 3.5 hours for this to rally back up, and then obviously the immediate danger will have passed, but we can very easily just trade lower from here, close the candle here, and then we'll be looking at a move down. You would hope, if you're an Ethereum bull, that we get held about the 1600 level, bounce off there and move back up. If we do, that will not look bad in our aesthetically pleasing chart view. Basically the move up, back test here, higher low relative to these lows, and then onwards and upwards from there. We could potentially draw a trend line, which, as you can see, well, depending on exactly how I draw it, this is another one of the reasons why I don't particularly like non-horizontal lines. But yeah, we could maybe get caught at this level, but yeah, we could maybe get caught at this trend line. But yeah, ideally though, we want to see us moving up. We want to see us moving back on this 4 hour candle. But if not, it isn't the end of the world for the dollar pairing at least. But obviously the Satoshi pairing is in trouble. And obviously Bitcoin, not that it would be in trouble, because we would just be testing. We just would be looking to test lower if we close under this horizontal. That lower could potentially only be the 52k, but remember, obviously, if we get down to 52k, we're taking out this low here, so we could see some accelerated selling, which then can blast us through this level, and then, well, the next midpoint is about 49k, and then about 47k. So we could be testing some downside. And I think a lot of that that will rest on how the next 4 hour candle closes. So yes, what else do I want to have a quick look at? Yes, stocks, S&P, as you can see, broken above our descending broadening wedge. Yeah, excellent. Came and tested it, pulled back, and now broken through. So this is looking particularly bullish. So stock markets could be going on a bit of a mission here. Nasdaq, I mean, the Nasdaq is struggling. But I mean, obviously in a rising interest rate environment, tech stocks are going to struggle. But yeah, Nasdaq is struggling, and then obviously the Dow is going to be looking pretty good. If it wants to load, maybe I've got a slow internet here or something. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, the Dow, Dow looking pretty good. What I will say, this rotation into the sort of laggards is typical, and I'm not saying this is what is happening, but is typical and could be what is happening of late cycle, basically late cycle rallies, where basically the main things rally and then they sort of peter out, and then it pads out into the not quite so good things. And obviously including the Russell also, and then that then basically cause your top. I mean, you kind of see the similar thing in Bitcoin. Bitcoin tops out, and then the alts go wild finally, and then the whole thing comes crashing down. But that, I'm not necessarily saying that is what's happening, but you guys do know what my views on basically stocks, stock markets. I think what we could very likely have is what we had between basically the late 60s, about 69, 68, 69, to basically the early 80s, which like about the 80, 82, which what we had was a very stealth bear market in stocks, where stocks didn't particularly go down. They kind of just traded sideways, maybe slightly up. But what we did have was inflation was basically running higher that whole time. So we were basically in a bear market, just not in the nominal value of stocks. So if stocks do trade sideways for a prolonged period, like which they could literally do for more than 10 years, like they did back then, we could basically have a bear market in stocks, but stocks basically just trade sideways. But it would be a massive bear market, based on basically the actual the level of inflation. Once you take that out of just the nominal, just what is obviously the price of stock market is nominal. So yeah, so that could be what we are looking at. That could be very much what we are going to be looking at. So yeah, basically sideways for stocks whilst inflation is basically eroding away that value. And yeah, basically things like other things may start to do better in inflation environments, and they certainly will outperform basically assets that aren't doing anything, which is pretty much the overall stock markets. That is what I suspect, because like I said, I think we'll have an inflationary basically bust, as it were, an inflationary bust rather than a deflationary one. So yeah, asset prices will maybe on the surface appear to still look like they're holding in there, but in reality, when you factor in for the inflation, they won't be. So yeah, we shall see what happens there. We shall see. Obviously, the Fed is going to do YCC. YCC it's called, yield curve control, and that is going to obviously hammer the dollar. Also, yeah, it is gonna hammer the dollar. So yeah, just watch out for that. There are things in certain basically bond markets not looking too good now. In the periphery, in some basically not as important markets, but they eventually do feed through to basically the main markets, i.e. the US markets and European markets. There are the warning signs are flashing. That's what I was going to say. I said the red lights are flashing. The warning signs are flashing. So yes, but that does not mean we are what I'm trying to explain is that does not necessarily mean we are going to end up with an actual big nominal number crash of the stock markets. We could just end up with literally 10, 15 years, maybe less, but maybe 10, 15 years of sideways in the stock markets. And yeah, and basically what is actually in real terms a massive bear market, like we had basically between pretty much 1968 and 1982. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, back to Bitcoin. Let's have a look at those stochastics. We obviously know they've been looking pretty good recently, but yeah, 4 hour is dropping down here. So yeah, obviously we could get some potential dragging down from the 4 hour stochastics. 10 hour has basically topped out at a pretty high level. 12 hour has, I suspect this is turning back over. Yes, 12 hour is starting to turn back over, still pointing up and still can stay up there. Daily still looking great. 2 days still looking turned up, 3 day looking turned up, and then 5 day just obviously, as you can see what the 5 day is doing. So I mean, basically reading into that, I mean, we are overall looking bullish. Like I've said, it was pretty much unlikely we were going to come all the way from the bottom of the larger range to the top and then just bust straight through. We will need some sort of either sideways consolidation or a downwards pullback. So I believe right at this very moment in time, that is what the market is deciding to do pretty much on this 4 hour candle, deciding whether it is going to basically consolidate up here and trade sideways, or is it going to basically come down and test lower, potentially around the 52 level, and then form a base, consolidate down here, and then potentially move back up. I believe we are at an inflection point here, but I do think that either way, whether we consolidate here or consolidate here, I think we are basically holding what we'll just call it 50k. I think we're holding 50k, although actually 50k is all the way down here. But yeah, yeah. So actually, probably higher than that. I would guess there is a higher likelihood we are basically gonna hold this 50. I mean, I just give myself some leeway. I'll say 50k, but yeah, pretty much hold this support here, and we will be taking out this this high and going onwards. That would be what I think is the most likely scenario. What I think is going to happen. Basically, I think we'll hold this and break through here eventually. But obviously, what happens in the meantime? Do we consolidate for a bit down here? Consolidate for a bit up here? That is what basically remains to be seen. But yeah, overall though, like I said, macro is still looking good, looking bullish. Had a nice pullback, basically making our way back to those highs. Yeah, the trend is your friend. So there you go, guys. Remember, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Thanks for listening, and I shall speak to you guys later.